everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. I just know you'll be glad that you did. We have not only a wonderful speaker and a terrific information for you, but it's really beautiful presentation also. So I'm so glad that you're going to be here with us for the next hour or so. My name is Rita Wolfson. I am the founder of Financial Social Work. With me is Eric Sopp. He is all things digital and technical. So we're glad to have him here. And our speaker today is Michelle Pava. And I think you'll be so glad to hear the important information that she's going to share with you. And I'll let her tell you more about herself in a few moments when I turn the presentation over to her. To get started, let's do a little quick housekeeping. You can check the chat box for any messages. Slides are not shared, they are proprietary. However, you will receive the recording and it will be on our website and our YouTube channel within a few days. You'll receive it via email. There is no CE or certificate attendance for this training, just some important information that you will be glad to have. You can type your questions into the question box and we'll answer as many as time permits at the end of the presentations. If you have any tech issues, please go to financialsocialwork.com and use the chat feature so Eric can help you. And as my little corner sign says, we're so glad you're here. If I can keep advancing, let me try this. No. I like to begin with our financial social work affirmation because I think it captures what I've been trying to do with our work for 2.5 decades. It goes, just for today, I will love myself enough to face my fears, practice self-acceptance, and embrace hope, silence my inner critic, speak my truth, and make peace with myself and with my past. Just for today, I will give myself permission to eliminate toxic people, beliefs, and behaviors from my life in order to prepare for a better tomorrow by healing my relationship with my money and with myself today. So I'm going to suggest you stay tuned till the end of this training because we do have a special discount for attendees. We'll share that with you later. So let's talk just for a few moments about financial social work, what it is, what it does, who needs it, when, and why. So a very simple truth is that while no one chooses to have money problems, sadly, most people do. They need trustworthy, reliable professionals with whom to process all things monetary. They need a safe, non-judgmental space where they may talk and learn about money. And everyone needs someone and somewhere to share their money secrets and questions that they've been hiding from or avoiding all of their lives. They need someone who practices financial social work, which is inclusive and available to everyone. Financial social work is at the intersection of social work, politics, the economy, gender, racial, social, economic, other able justice, and climate change, and of course, mental health and financial inequity. It is a behavioral model addressing the thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, values, and experiences that drive financial behavior. And that's because until and unless behavior changes, nothing changes. For us, financial behavior looks like how one earns, spends, saves, shares, and borrows. The work is heart centered, approaching money and life from a perspective of healing, acceptance, courage, wellness, transparency, and honesty. It is about healing the relationship we each have with our money and with ourselves, growing healthier personally, financially, and professionally, reducing financial stress, problems, anxiety, and trauma, and creating a safe, non judgmental space where clients and friends and colleagues can learn, process, and talk about money. Financial social workers are agents of financial change. They address money and mental health, advocate for marginalized groups, help clients cope, heal, and deal with their money and mental health. They work to repair their own and their clients' relationship with money and self, and are committed to gender, social, and economic justice. Our certification will include the sixth workbook early in 2025. For the past 2 decades, there's only been 5. We have a payment plan. The certification needs renewal every 3 years so that we know our graduates are current, up to date on financial news and manner to present this and work with clients. We've just introduced video programs, and every few months we'll be introducing new ones that include CEUs. We have a partner program, a directory, lots of things to help you and support you to do this work that's needed so very much by clients. And with that, it does really give me great pleasure to turn this over to our guest speaker. And let's see how easily we get this done, Michelle. All right. All right. It's on its way to you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to show my screen and I'm just going to go big here.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So first I have to move this one area. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Rita. Thank you, everyone. Many of us chose this work because we spent our lives analyzing, observing, seeking answers, starting with our own struggles. I had my own struggles and generational struggles, and I think most of us have. So for me, one of the things that really strikes the struggle for me is my autism. And that has also been positive. It's given me a fixation with money from the time I was a child. And it wasn't about always collecting money, but just looking at how it moved, how it shaped lives, and how it's perceived. So as a child, my favorite shows were I Dream of Jeannie, if you remember that, if anyone here is old enough to remember that, and The Jeffersons. These were shows that revolved around aspiration, transformation, and of course, money. They planted the seeds that grew into a fascination for me of how wealth influences identity and opportunity. So, a little bit about me. This has led me to working with money in many ways. So, right now, I am a financial therapist, a fractional CMO, and a publicist. So, no matter what the path, all roads lead to economic empowerment for me, helping others to kind of find their best yellow brick road. And you're going to see why I get into that right now, because we're going to be talking about The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz, and Wicked, and using these stories that can remind us that money isn't just about numbers, it's about stories, connections, and power to redefine what matters. So I definitely respect your time. And I know that sometimes when people have the slides in front of them, they read the slide, which is to me not a fun thing. So I'm not going to do that. So on the slides that are self-explanatory, we're just going to coast by them, and I'm sure you can get copies of them if you're interested. So let's begin. So, and if anyone has any questions, definitely put them in there. I love questions and interaction. So historically, wealth and poverty were profoundly shaped and how individuals and societies viewed themselves as well. And this is the Gilded Age. So this is the ultra rich flaunting their fortunes, fueling admiration and resentment. Wealth became synonymous with virtue, while poverty was seen as a personal failing. Now, during the Gilded Age and the whole Great Gatsby vibe, you saw a lot of that flaunting, but behind the scenes, there was a lot of oppression as well. And also a lot of looking at poverty, like I said, as a personal failing. So for instance, Andrew Carnegie had the Gospel of Wealth, and that emphasized philanthropy, but it also perpetuated the idea that the poor simply needed better guidance. In contrast, the Great Depression flipped the narrative, exposing the fragility of financial stability. Poverty was no longer an individual issue, it became a collective crisis. So these perspectives to me echo today. It's financial trauma, anxiety, and identity. And our financial stories are, in fact, archetypes. They are deeply embedded in the unconscious, and through compassionate exploration, I feel that we can transform these stories, embracing wealth as wholeness, not just dollars and cents. So the 1940s to the 1970s, this is when society grappled with the shifting archetypes of womanhood, tied closely with wealth and identity. So World War II, this is where women were the caretaker provider as an archetype, maybe, stepping into jobs which were often vacated by men. And Rosie the Riveter symbolized strength. This was an archetype seen as temporary, though. So when the war ended, society expectations pushed many women back into domestic roles, emphasizing that that was their proper place. They were only needed to be temporary support, but that was it. Now, for women of color, the experience was really different. While white women were celebrated as wartime contributors, women of color were often seen as hard workers, low paid workers, and even during economic expansion, they weren't really respected as much. And so this was a different archetype. They were seen as the strong Black woman. And I still see that today where that is an archetype. This is more of the subservient help reflected in systemic racism and limiting access to wealth building opportunities. There was a second wave of feminism coming a little bit later, and that was still not great. We had the Equal Pay Act of 1963, and it remained elusive, especially for marginalized women. These roles show that wealth is more than money. It's really about power and perception and dismantling narratives and really understanding our worth. So then we go forward to the 1980s to the 2010s. So I'm jumping a lot here. So I blew through all of those decades. But this is the rise of dual income households redefined by wealth and gender dynamics. These shifts also carried visible symbols of women navigating male-dominated workplaces. Now, again, if you're old enough, you remember, or you can look back, fashion itself became a battleground for identity and power. Women's workwear of the 80s, and when I say workwear, I mean going into corporate offices, were exaggerated shoulder pads. I remember I had these designed to mirror the broad shoulders of men's suits. But at the time, I just thought they looked good. I thought they made my waist look small. But that's really what it was about. It was about mirroring the energy of a man, the attempt to visually take up more space and to convey our authority and competence. And that's what the fashion designers were doing. So these same outfits were often softened, though, by these overly feminine touches, such as large bows tied at the neck. And it's kind of a symbolic nod to the male tie, but distinctly coded as female. So this was a visual duality reflected, and it was a deeper conflict that women faced, the need to adopt a traditionally masculine trait, but still be taken seriously while still being feminine, or the idea of what society says is feminine. For women of color, the struggle was even more fraught, as they often lacked access to the same professional spaces, faced additional biases, and it was harder to present themselves. The power suit era was really a critical archetype. And if Jung was alive now, I think power suit would have been an archetype that he would have brought up. So I really think that we have to look at dual income households. And I'm going to get more into this in a little bit of how important it is. And we also are going to be looking at, and when I say looking at, we're going to be having other conversations, but the 2020s are bringing us right where we are now. And it's a wealth dynamic that continues to evolve. It's challenging norms. The rise of female breadwinners has disrupted the archetype of the male provider. Today, nearly 30% of women in opposite gender marriages are the primary earners, reshaping family structures and family dynamics. But even though they're breadwinners, they still have unequal pay. So on average, women are still earning about 82 cents to every dollar that a man earns, with women of color usually earning even less, highlighting that financial leadership doesn't equate to financial equality. So then we have COVID-19. This amplified economic vulnerabilities, particularly for women. This was disproportionate. It shouldered caregiving roles and job losses, leading to some to exit the workplace entirely. For women of color, these challenges were compounded as they often held frontline or low-paying jobs, widening the health gap and the wealth gap. So women were struggling health-wise with their wealth, with their career and finances, yet 30% were still the breadwinners. So really, it's about these trends reflecting a seismic shift. Wealth is no longer just about earning, it's about resilience, adaptability, and rewriting outdated narratives. So we can talk about the poll now, or we could do it later. It's up to you, Rita. It's whatever you want to do. Did you want to bring up the poll? We can wait. We can actually wait on the poll, you know, a little bit later. Do you want to wait on that, or do you want to do the poll?
Let's go for it.
Okay, because the poll is interesting. So the poll, and let me just state that the reason why I did the Wizard of Oz and so forth, the poll's still in progress. So the reason why I did that is because so many people see different characters of the Wizard of Oz, the Wiz, and Wicked as inherently good or bad. So, okay, the wizard holds the power, right, relies on illusion. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. I like how it's almost even.
It is interesting.
So I'm going to be bringing up so let me just talk a little bit about the poll. So I brought up the wizard, Glinda, and the Emerald City. And there's a lot of other dynamics and characters that you could put in here. Dorothy, you could even put the dog in there. There's so many different characters. But the reason why I wanted to do this is because there's no wrong answer. And it just shows how what we bring to the table is a perception. So the wizard holding power but relying on illusion is absolutely correct. A lot of leadership politics is like that. Glinda, the good witch, symbolizes privilege, and she does, because I think in The Wiz, Wicked, and in The Wizard of Oz especially, honestly, I feel like Glinda was the worst one. She just blows into town and takes somebody else's shoes that don't even belong to her. She's actually a thief, and yet because she looks a certain way, it's just deemed that, oh, well, she's attractive, she must be doing the right thing. She's saying all the right things, when really these were heirlooms of the other witch. So, and then we have Emerald City and the people that live there, lavish lifestyles, maybe keeping up with other people, but not really too happy, because how could you possibly be happy when the person running it is just an illusion? So I wanted to just bring up that and, think about some other characters. When you think about Dorothy, a lot of people saw Dorothy as this young, innocent kid who gets stuck, but is she? Or is she this oppositional kid who's not listening to anyone, who literally is picking up men along her path? Like, everything about what she's doing, we would not want for our children to do. So it's just interesting to me how The Wizard of Oz gives us such a good foundation for different perceptions. So I
I'm
would
going
love
to
to talk more.
launch the other poll, Michelle.
What was that?
I'm going to launch your second
Oh,
poll.
okay. Okay. And so the first one was more about wealth. And so this one, the second one was more about poverty. Like, who do we really think is symbolic of poverty? And it's a tough one because, Dorothy was from a small town and struggling. And it looks like the Munchkins are winning here as far as the working class. And which may be true. They are the working class. They seem to not have as much. And it's interesting. They're so in awe of Glinda, who's magical, but Glinda rolls into town, and what is she doing for them? Not much. So, and they're actually depending upon the Wicked Witch to not be there, but the Wicked Witch doesn't really seem to be, I mean, technically, at least during the movie, she's doing nothing but trying to get her shoes back. That's all she's trying to do, get her shoes back. So the Munchkins, I do agree here with 61% seeing the Munchkins being the working class. I do believe that to be true. But it's interesting because as you can see here, even with, I would say 99% professionals taking this poll, how different the answers are. And that just shows you how perceptions are so different in how we see wealth and poverty, even though we're all kind of on the same team here. So going to the next area, and just keep that in mind. And if you want to talk more about that, I'm actually, I think, going to be writing a book about this. So if you want to be added into that, I would love that. So just contact me. But let's look at, it's not letting me. Oh, I think you have to give it back to me to, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to just talk about money perceptions, and they're not just inherited stories. Survival strategies are forged into these stories. So the Great Depression left scars of scarcity that still shape how families approach money. Saving for a rainy day isn't just advice, it's a fear-driven mantra, but it's born of a world where everything was lost overnight, and yet catastrophes do happen, and we can't forget that. Wars, political upheaval, I mean, drones flying over your house, economical exploitation. These all prove that financial insecurity isn't imagined, it's real, especially for marginalized groups. So I want to take Jewish families here as an example. So historic, and I come from a family that is interfaith, so part of our family is Jewish, and this is something that I didn't realize until I really started digging more into it. But historically, Jewish individuals were barred from owning property in the United States and many countries. So they were forced into careers not tied to land or storefronts. So they went into careers like accounting, entertainment, law, and medicine, because these professions were able to go kind of door to door or be without the constraints of a shop or a shop being a shop owner. But what happened is, over time, these professions proved to be lucrative for many people. So instead of the acknowledgement of being oppressed, what they did as a community was saw that this was a symbol of resilience and adaptation. So this success was weaponized, though, against them, leading to oppression and vilification with a lot of anti-Semitic tropes, such as saying, oh, Jewish people are greedy. So that's just another way that we can look at that. So we also have systemic policies like redlining. And if you're not aware of that, it's a discriminatory practice where banks and insurers refuse loans or services to people in predominantly Black neighborhoods. While this ensured generational wealth was unattainable for many families of color. So by doing this, it was holding people back, obviously, but again, it's perceptions. So meanwhile, women and people of color, those facing unique challenges, including neurodivergence like autism, remained excluded from full financial power. And it still lingers today. So moving on, I think this one is a little self-explanatory, but I do want to get into it a little bit. Financial systems have historically excluded more than they have included. So gender roles, for instance, and I've talked a lot about that, dictated that men handled finances where women were steered towards caregiving. So it wasn't until the 70s, as everyone here knows, that you couldn't even get a credit card if you were a woman in your own name. So it would bind the financial control to male approval. So this wasn't just about exclusion, it was about control. Neurodivergent individuals face unique challenges even today within traditional financial systems. So concepts like strict budgets or rigid deadlines can feel overwhelming to someone, say, with ADHD or autism. However, many neurodivergent individuals actually excel in finance due to their exceptional analytical skills, pattern recognition, and attention to detail. So despite this, outward traits that others perceive as socially awkward can actually lead to bias. So this is changing, thankfully. The fintech community, which is a lot of ADHD and autism, has been making apps that will help people and acknowledge that these financial systems are better set to people that are neurodivergent. So I want to look at generational wealth here specifically. So generational wealth is a story that we tell ourselves. It's a legacy passed hand to hand, carrying the dreams and sacrifices of those who came before us. So for the fortunate, it feels like a blessing, a foundation of stability, a home inherited, an education paid for, or a chance to leap rather than to climb. But beneath the story lies a quieter truth. While it lifts individual families, generational wealth often reinforces the walls that divide us. We see it in systems that decide who is allowed to pass wealth on and who is left to start from nothing. And then if you have to start from nothing, is it that you just weren't working hard enough? Generational wealth, though deeply personal, reminds us that there is a collective imbalance. True equality is not about taking away what's earned. It's about creating a world where every family can build a story worth passing down. So then I want to talk about really recognizing, bias. Like the Wizard of Oz. Just as we learned that there isn't really good or bad, and it's not as clear cut, and even we didn't agree in the poll, we have to imagine that these stories tell us about wealth and poverty. Who is really responsible? Who's really deemed as reckless? These judgments are often shaped by stereotypes that we've absorbed, but not truths that we've discovered. Personal biases around money often stem from the environments we grew up in. Did we see wealth as a reward for virtue or a source of corruption? Did we view poverty as failure? Did we see it as the system's neglect? So we have all of these beliefs and how we approach money today, whether we hoard it, fear it, or spend it freely. And by reflecting on these origins, we actually create a space to challenge society narratives. Financial healing begins not really with judgment, but curiosity. What if we've been seeing it all wrong, though? And so, to me, financial literacy is a journey we all know well. And in this room, you're the architects of that journey. You're not just teaching the concepts, you're building the collective yellow brick road. So together we can ensure that this path is accessible and inclusive and leads to actual change. So one of the things that I want to do, and by the way, I want everyone to know I am extremely proud of this. I wanted to do the yellow brick road with the White House and everything. So each of you here is a trailblazer. You might not feel like it, but you are, because you're uniquely positioned. And this is the first time that this has ever happened. You're uniquely positioned at the intersection of psychology and finance, with the power to challenge the systems that uphold privilege and power. I would guarantee that almost none of the people in leadership, in power, politically I'm talking about, would even be able to define financial therapy. It's just too new to them. They haven't been exposed to it. So you are the movers and the shakers. You're the first generation, no matter how old you are, you're the first generation with the knowledge and drive to wake those up who have held control for too long. You're not just walking the yellow brick road, you are actually leading to change and rebuild it. And this is an opportunity that's no longer just the privilege of just a few, but it's a right for everyone. And I just, as I was creating this and talking about perceptions, it got me a little emotional. Like, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of something that's like the first time in history. We are the first generation to bring this and be taught this. And that's amazing when you think about that. So this is very self-explanatory. We understand that we have to have cultural sensitivity and a space for everyone, and neurodivergent design. So we understand that. I think this is self-explanatory as well, that we have to have diversity and it has to be ongoing. This one also very obvious. We know about online banking and mobile payments, cryptocurrency, AI. We understand all of this. You can look at this later. You can get a copy of it. But I wanted to get into this because this is an area that I know a little too well. So before I did what I'm doing now, I was a full-time journalist. And I will tell you that even way back in the 80s, media shapes how we view wealth and poverty. It shapes how we view everything, often creating stereotypes that stick. Social media, which when I started in journalism, there wasn't even social media. So it kind of grew into my life. But social media shows curated wealth, while movies and shows, television programs, paint a very different picture of success and struggle. So just think about The Pursuit of Happiness, the movie. That's all about resilience and survival in the face of poverty. But then you have The Real Housewives, which, if you like the show, great, but it does highlight extravagant wealth and drama that comes with it. And it highlights almost celebrating drama, celebrating being superficial. And these programs can make people who are being influenced, they can make them make decisions that are really bad, and they can also change their perceptions of what wealth looks like. And these stories affect how we see money and success. They oversimplify, they exaggerate, they make it hard to see the full picture. And as professionals, I feel it's our role to help others see beyond these portrayals and think critically about what wealth and poverty really mean. And it's really quite scary, to be honest. I think this is obviously self-explanatory, and I think you guys know this probably in and out. And if you don't, you can learn it through the center. So I don't want to stay on this one too long. I think this one also is self-explanatory. We get that this is more of a gig economy, remote work. We get why it's happening and so forth. But here is where I wanted to give an example, which I don't know that we talk about enough. And this is important because environmental factors like climate change, and we're seeing it now today with the fires in California. We're seeing it everywhere, but we're especially seeing it in California. Resources and scarcity deeply influence how we view wealth and poverty. So rising sea levels impact poverty, and it does so because there's property value changes when the sea levels rise. So coastal areas that have sea levels that are rising will impact property values, creating financial loss for some while driving up costs for others. Sustainable investing is offering a path to align financial decisions with global responsibility. This next one, also very self-explanatory, and you could just give it a quick look over. And then I want to get into something else that's a little different. So cultural differences, and this does affect how we look at our perceptions and wealth and poverty. But there's 3 different examples I want to give you that actually reflect the areas highlighted on this slide. So first, in my notes here, in many East Asian cultures, collectivist values often mean financial decisions prioritize family well-being over individual wealth. So this might include pooling resources for shared goals like education or healthcare. Then we have more individualist societies like Australia, where financial success is often tied to personal achievement. So wealth might symbolize independence with milestones like owning a home or starting a business. So it's all about the individual. And then we have religious influences, and they play a significant role in shaping financial attitudes. And I just want to take, for example, Buddhism. So Buddhism is about the concept of moderation and avoiding excess, especially excess wealth, and that aligns with spiritual teachings influencing saving and spending behaviors. So these examples just highlight how these 3 areas can actually also shape our beliefs and financial attitudes as well. So you might be having a conversation with someone, but not knowing what their potential cultural, racial, or religious influences are, and that could change a lot of how they feel. This next one, also self-explanatory. I think that we probably all agree that corporations should have more responsibility and so forth. And this one is kind of big because when I was looking at this, it was like, oh my gosh, the numbers started really jumping at me. And I started realizing how many people don't have access to digital financial tools. So there's so many people who are unbanked and they risk being left further behind as economies increasingly rely on digital payments. This divide can deepen wealth gaps, leaving those without access. They could be excluded from opportunities like even just the basics of saving or investing or participating in the global marketplace. And inclusion isn't optional, it's essential for equality. So I don't have an answer to this. I don't have an answer to a lot of this. I just wanted to bring up that these are things maybe we need to be looking at. And then this one is also, to me, very self-explanatory. We need to really break into some of these areas and understand them maybe a little better, or I might be projecting. I need to understand them a little better, but I think they're very important. So in today's digital world, this to me is a spider web. This is a spider web that is spun. You can't escape it, and it's controlling our perceptions 24/7. And that's influencers, uh, stage and screen celebrities, and it's a lot of fabrication. It's rented cars, staged kitchens, curated sets. I mean, a lot of influencers have uh, they go and rent a kitchen and people think that's their kitchen. You know, there's so many things, and this creates illusions that we unknowingly compare ourselves to. Evolutionary psychology tells us that we are wired to scan and belong for survival. So if we're scanning an illusion, we can never measure up and it distorts our reality. It leaves us trapped in cycles of feeling inadequate, longing for acceptance and longing for stuff, and to be accepted into a tribe that actually doesn't even exist. It's false. And again, very self-explanatory. I won't go through reading it, but I thought this was interesting. And it's interesting because if you also look at, you know, how somebody who's a baby boomer may react to a millennial who is focused on quiet quitting because they don't want to be taken advantage of, the baby boomer might think that they're being lazy, while the millennial doesn't want to work themselves to the bone the way their grandparents did or their parents. So I just want to thank everyone. I know I blew through this really quickly. I just want to thank you. You know, I've worked with individuals, brands, and media for 30 years. I know everyone has a power to make a difference. The perceptions of wealth through time are shifting, but that only happens when we're vocal and we're bold and we're unafraid to pull back the curtain, just like the Wizard of Oz. I had to sneak that in there. Our ancestors did not sacrifice and did not survive and sacrifice so that we could squander the voices that they fought so hard for. And I say that with such meaning. My mother was brought up in an orphanage, and you know, she didn't come to where she was so that I could just sit quietly in some privilege. So it's important for me personally to make some noise. And you know, the Emerald City might be an illusion, but I think that our voices and actions are real. And together, I think that we all have had hardship, and our families and ancestors had a hardship, and we could shape a world where privilege and power are redefined, but for the greater good. So I want to thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you. And that's all. Thank you.
So that was really wonderful. Wow, I learned a lot. And I bet everybody else did too.
Thank you.
So, thank you. As we're winding down, before we get to the Q&A part, I just had a few more things I wanted to share. I wanted everyone to know that on our website, we have a partner program, and many of our students and graduates earn money from that partner program. It's available to everyone. We have a financial wellness magazine. We have a social work, financial social work directory, and the Financial Social Work Collaborative, which I'm going to speak about in a moment or two. We have added videos, and every few months we'll be adding new videos, all including CEUs from National and ASW, and each on a variety of topics for different populations and the way they interact with their money. So we usually have this monthly free webinar on the second Thursday of each month. And here you can see this is next month, and this is March, which is Social Work Month. But right here, we have something special that we've never done before, and that's our first quarterly financial social work collaborative workshop. So on Thursday, January 23rd, that's 2 weeks from today, you can meet, you can see them up here, the 4 women graduates from the Center for Financial Social Work who created the collaborative and schedule monthly, several meetings each month for networking, additional training, and support. It's very important to them that our students and graduates have what they need to help make a difference with the clients that they interface with. So a few things to remember about money is that no one chooses to have money problems, but most people do. No one really needs to know everything about money, but everyone does need to know certain things about money. Always keep in mind the strong connection and impact of money and mental health. They're very integrated. And if we want to raise, well, if we want to stop raising generation after generation of financially illiterate people, then we need to prepare our children for the real world by teaching them more about money. So now is the time to invite greater financial health and wellness into your practice, casework, client work, classrooms, workplaces, communities, conversations, and certainly into your own life. It is the time to become an agent of financial change. I did want to share with you that we have our financial social work micro, meso, and macro practice being published by Cognella in June of this year. We're very excited and hoping that more and more MSWs and other graduate professionals will have the opportunity to know more about helping clients with these stress and anxiety and trauma associated with financial problems. So we have our financial social work certification, and our students have 6 months to complete it. It is self-study and self-paced. It includes all the materials plus the final exam, and also an attractive certificate for framing. It includes lifetime membership in our directory, and all graduates receive new and updated materials as they are made available. And graduates may use the original certification materials with their clients. And so, as I asked you at the beginning to stay with us, we have a special 15% discount off of everything on our website. If you want to take advantage of that, there's that code webinar 202501. And that concludes the presentations from Michelle and from myself. Eric, do we have any questions?
Well, we have a lot of feedback about the presentation overall. Everybody overwhelmingly loved it, so great work there.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I was really nervous, guys, so thank you.
You were great.
We have some questions coming in about the textbook. Where do I get it? There's also a question in about I'm a graduate. Will I receive workbook 6? And let's see. Well, Rita, do you want to address those questions while I
Sure.
come in?
All of our graduates do receive any new materials, any updated materials, and can use all of those original materials in the certification. So when the 6th workbook comes out, which I think will be in this first quarter of the year, we could push Eric on that to find out, but kind of more up to him at this point than me. But I think it'll be out, you know, February, March, and all graduates will receive it in their um, account on our website, and you'll be told that it is there. Um, so that's what was the other part of that? That's the new workbook, and it
The
is
textbook.
the textbook. Well, I guess we could tell you if someone asked that May, the second Thursday in May, Thursday, second Thursday in May, we will be doing kind of a big celebration at this very webinar situation, launching the textbook. Um, so Cognella is the publisher, and we will be giving all of those details at that training. And we're pretty excited about it because one question I'm asked all the time is, how come we weren't taught this in grad school? Well, there was no financial social work for a very long time until I created it. And there was no textbook, but there will be a textbook this year. So that's exciting.
That was my little clap.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm excited.
Ah,
Any other questions?
Well, all right. There's one here, maybe not directly tied to the presentation, but maybe you both have some input. Do you have any recommendation for a new financial therapist in private practice having difficulty obtaining clients?
is that for me?
You go, Michelle.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times when you have a hard time obtaining clients, especially if you're new, or even if you're not new, if you're having a hard time, it's really because people don't understand what you do. So they don't, and when it comes to financial therapy, a lot of times people do not know that they have an issue. So I mean, they might know they have money struggles, but they don't know, oh, for this money, they think they just need a budget and that's it. They don't understand that there's more to it. So if you are newer, or just in general, if you're just looking for clients, the number one thing I would say, and I do publicity and marketing also, I should mention this, is get your name out there. And I'm saying this as you can do this on your own. Get your name out there, start blogging about what you feel passionate about, and start sharing those blogs, get on Instagram, and really focus on one specific thing. So I personally like companies. I also like couples. So I do more in those areas. But for instance, I'm going to give you a quick example. If you happen to have been previously more of a trauma therapist for teenagers, or something where you worked with teens, then start focusing on working with teens and financial literacy for teens. Start in an area that you're already comfortable with or that you're already known for, and piggyback your financial therapy on top of that. Pretty soon people are going to start talking to you and referring you, and once you get the ball rolling, it becomes you're going to have to turn people away. So I hope that answered your question, but you can always just email me as well, and no charge. I'll if you give me more personal information, I can just give you some more customized guidance. But I hope that helped.
I'd like to add, I thought that was really great, Michelle. And I'd like to add that you have to get that message out. You have to be, I mean, I talk about, and I did it in parts of the presentation today, clients need a safe, non-judgmental space to process their financial problems, anxiety, stress, trauma. Those places don't exist. Spread the word. Let your current other clients know about it. Talk to your colleagues. Talk to your people in your practices, in your agencies. This exists. Um, and you have to have a following. The good news is that social media, for the most part, is free. The less good piece of that is it takes a lot of time. So prioritize what you're doing, spread the word, let people know that you talk about money, because very few people do in a healthy, safe environment. And I hope you're certified. If you are certified, go to fswcollaborative.com and put in your email. They will send you the list of their meetings each month so you can meet other private practitioners, agency workers, hear what they're doing. They share their knowledge, as do the four founders of the collaborative. We provide you that kind of support because we know how important it is to build a practice and to help people with sustainable long-term financial behavioral change, which is absolutely, you just said this, Michelle, about so much more than budgeting. Is a budget important? Absolutely, one of the most important tools, but it's not engaging unless clients understand its value. They're not going to use it. Fewer than 50% of people in this country have a budget, and those who have them often don't use them. So we're looking for imagination, we're looking for creativity, and that's what we do on our end, and you can do that also. Anything else, Eric?
Let me take one more look. I think that might pretty much sum it up. I guess there's one right here. How can we contact Michelle?
Oh, you could just contact me at thefinancetherapist.com. And you can also email me at hello@thefinancetherapist.com.
And with that, I'll just also give one reminder because I know that those questions are going to come in. The webinar was recorded and we'll send it out on Monday. So just check your inbox Monday and you'll have it right there.
Well, then, let me thank everyone. I hope that, especially you, Michelle, and I hope we'll see you back here 2 weeks from today to learn more about the FSW Collaborative and how it makes a difference for those, working with clients who are struggling financially. And then next month and the month after, we're here for you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
so much.
beautiful rest of the day.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Michelle.
everyone.
Bye now.